today we're going to be going over Conformance and code owners, which are a new part of Vercel's developer experience platform. And so primarily when you think of Vercel, you think of Next.js, you think of managed infrastructure, you think of being able to take your site and deploy it globally. And this is us starting to introduce more and more tools to help you not only scale your site further, but also help you build better sites. So I'll jump over to our agenda for today. We'll start off with some intros and some goals for the webinar. I'll go over an overview of Vercel just to level set what exactly the Vercel platform as a whole is trying to achieve. We'll do a demo of Conformance and code owners, and then we'll start to walk through how it fits into the developer experience platform and some different facts and why you should think of both your developer experience and then as well alongside of how performant your site is. So let's jump over and start into those intros. And so ultimately the goal of today is we're going to set up Conformance and code owners in a brand new monorepo. We're going to walk through how we can take Conformance and code owners, help us ship faster without breaking things. Because if I jump out to the about me a little bit, so prior to Vercel, I was working at initially I started at an insurance tech company. So there I was doing front-end mobile development, back-end development, a lot of AWS development. And then from there, I shifted into AWS and web development consulting for large enterprises. And for a lot of companies that I talked to, a lot of their issues were less around scaling servers because AWS handles most of it. It's really around how am I able to develop my site in a fast and efficient manner without shipping a bug that all of a sudden cost me millions of dollars in revenue. And so that's what I do day to day with customers here at Vercel. So I'm a sales engineer working with different customers, helping them map their path from whether it's a legacy infrastructure on a monolithic platform or helping them optimize their existing infrastructure on Vercel. And so we're going to walk through Conformance, code owners, and we're going to go through how that accelerates the development process by letting you not have to worry as much around shipping bugs, and then also letting you think about how you can build in your own tribal knowledge that you get as a company. Because a lot of times in PRs, there's specific style or specific ways you want to build your site. You want to build that into the development process as well. And finally, we'll have some questions as that comes up as well. Feel free to drop them in the Q&A or the chat or wherever else you want. So first, let's talk a little bit about Vercel. So Vercel is a front-end cloud that gives teams the tools to develop, preview, and ship at the moment of inspiration. So like I mentioned, prior to working at Vercel, I was working at an AWS consulting agency. And so day to day, we would spend months and months and months working with customers to map out these giant architecture diagrams of how their EC2s and their Kubernetes clusters are going to talk to their front ends. And then at the end of the day, we were spending months of time building out this infrastructure that Vercel gives you out of the box. And it gives you not only out of the box, but it lets you develop every single commit of the way with a preview and understanding what exactly you're shipping. And so when I think about Vercel, there's two sides of the platform. There's a managed infrastructure side, and then there's a developer experience side. Ultimately, two different KPIs and two different business objectives that the company is trying to optimize on, right? So as a company, you might be looking at how do I increase my conversion rates? How do I increase my performance of my site? How do I also make sure that my site doesn't go down as much? That's where Vercel's managed infrastructure comes in and lets you ship your site and not have to worry about scaling up for Black Friday, worry about how many EC2s I need, worry about monitoring dashboards all the time. We still give you front-end tailored observability, but we let you not have to check a dashboard every couple of days and let you just sleep and not have to worry about it. But today we're really focusing more on the developer experience side of the house, where a lot of times your issue is not, is my site scaled up for Black Friday? It's, I shipped a bug and now all of a sudden there's a security vulnerability at my site. And now I've cost millions of dollars of revenue to my company. Or I need to wait for my pull request to be reviewed by 6 different people because I don't know who exactly should review this piece of code, right? Ultimately slowing down the pull request and the development process and not letting you ship the features to production faster, and maybe letting competitors slip ahead of you, right? Being able to iterate faster, iterate more collaboratively, and ship faster and focus on the things that are actually going to move the business forward. And so this is where conformance and code owners comes in. And so I will swap over to my IDE here. And so inside here, there's just an example monorepo. So I have two different apps. I have a web and a docs app. These are pretty much just Next.js templates. But you can imagine that, like, let's say we're an e-commerce company. We have multiple different sites operating at once, and these are all operating in a monorepo. When I talk to some of the largest companies in the world, typically when they start splitting up their repo into multiple different repositories, it slows down the organization and limits the collaboration. And so we see that the organizations that are moving the fastest, we see them adopting monorepos and collaborating more as a team. And so that's alongside a lot of the developer tooling that we're building is things like Turbo Repo that fit alongside conformance and code owners. And so this is a monorepo leveraging Turbo Repo. And then we also have a couple of shared packages. And so let's say today I want to get an understanding of what is the state of my application today? Like, what would Vercel say I need to fix about my site? And so what we can do is we can run a simple test. And all we have to do is run after you set it up. So there's a setup command where you'll go pm conformance setup. It'll set up the conformance package inside your site. And then there's the CLI that Vercel gives you. And this is really the core of the conformance suite, is the CLI that runs on top of your application and lets you run these checks. So if I open up my package.json, you'll see there's a package here. It's in a private NPM repository called Vercel private/conformance. And this is really the core of the conformance product. So if I go in here, run pm conformance across my entire monorepo, we'll figure out quickly what is going wrong and what is going right. And so you can see the conformance package suite here is not very happy with my site. I have multiple things wrong. I have descriptions that I haven't set up in my package JSON. I'm missing ESLint configurations. I'm missing and this is a very simple application. You can imagine if I scaled this up to the size of some of the largest sites in the world, like Walmart, Target, Amazon, it'd probably be pretty out of control. And so ultimately, I want to be able to burn down all these issues, get it to the point where I have 0 issues in my site. But today, I still have to run my business. And so the first step in setting up conformance is allow listing all these errors and saying, I accept that all these errors sit in my repo. I'm going to set up all these allow list files. And so we run the exact same command, except we tell conformance that we want to allow list all the errors. And so inside here, now I have all these allow list files in my repository. And so this is essentially, you can think of it similar to a TS, like a TS ignore or like an ESLint ignore, where you're telling the package itself that I've accepted there's a problem. And now here's all the different places that I've caused havoc on my repo. And so you can actually go in here, see the error, and you can actually give it a reason. So you can say, like, maybe some of these are valid and there's a reason why I want to allow list them. Maybe I do not like TypeScript or have some sort of specific reason against the security header. Well, they probably should have these security headers. And so now that I have all these checks added to my repo, I've added all these allow lists. Let's go and commit these back into my repository. And so let's go right here. Let's just commit these right to main. And let's actually nuke my Turbo Repo cache and make sure it's hitting all these. My Turbo Repo automatically caches specific packages in your repo in case you already ran a command. I'm just making sure that this ran on all the packages, nothing was cached. We're making sure everything is clear. We open up here, and there we go. We have all the allow list across the repository. Let's go ahead and commit this to main. And so now this is great and all, but ultimately it isn't a great experience to just be looking through different files, and you don't have a global view of what is the actual state of the application. And so this is where you open up Vercel, and now we can link up your repository. It'll analyze all the allow lists in your file, and it'll give you a global conformance score. And so let's do that next. We open up add new repository. It'll link directly to my GitHub account. I'll connect my repository. I want all my features turned on. Let's connect it. And then it's going to go through, scan all those allow list files, and figure out what is the state of the repository. Let's go ahead and enable it. Go back. And there we go. You can see my docs repo is excellent, 10 out of 10. My web repo is 9.6. There's a couple issues that I need to fix before I can move ahead here. And then if I also look through some of my package, similarly, there's a couple minor rules that I need to fix. And so this is really the source of truth for conformance in your dashboard. So in here, I can actually click into any of these specific ones. Like, let's say I want to look into my core web repository. I can open up the conformance score, and I can see in more detail the exact rules and the exact places where they are being, for lack of a better word, not followed. And then I can click into here, and it'll open up GitHub in the exact spot, the exact actual commit where I made this change, and I decided to create this, break this rule and add this allow list. And then actually taking a step back, you can see from a high level, there's a couple different rules that conformance checks for. And so in this dashboard, it overviews the different types of rules that we're checking for across the repo. The first core one is Next.js issues. And so you probably are already aware that Vercel is the creator of the framework Next.js, the most popular React framework used by some of the largest organizations like Walmart, Disney, Target. And so, like, frequently as a company, we get customers coming in who are looking for advice of how to create the best application. They're almost looking for professional services from us. But ultimately, like, while we do audits for these customers, we wanted to find a way to help scale this knowledge that we've gained over the years of building the framework and build it in a way so that customers can just get this out of the box from us and not have to call. And so this is where these Next.js issues are coming in. So things like specific headers that you need to add, things like React strict mode, a lot of specific reasons or rules that you might need to add. And so actually, if we go to the Vercel docs, you can see a full list of all the rules in the docs here. And so if we go over to Conformance, you can see here's a full list. And so it covers things like fetching from middleware, self-hosting videos, missing TypeScript plugins, and other things that might impact both security and performance that are very specific to Next.js that you wouldn't get from other static analysis tools. So if we jump back into the application, you can see we're doing pretty well. There's also performance issues that might be more broadly related to front-end applications, and same with security issues, and then code health issues. And then finally, I mentioned this before, but there might be specific rules to your organization that might only fit for you. It might not broadly be something that Vercel wants to recommend to everyone. And that's where we let you fill in custom rules. And so right now they're limited to a couple different types. We're looking to expand this more in the future, but right now it's for things like being able to set up a regular expression for formatting the way you want to type comments in your repo, or forbidding certain dependencies. Like maybe you want to forbid people from using a certain type of CSS package, or packages that are known to have security vulnerabilities, or packages that you simply like you only want to standardize on a specific type of fetching repository or fetching package, those types of things. You can also forbid certain imports in your repository and then certain properties as well. And there we jump back. That's an overview of the dashboard that you get with Conformance. And then you probably were also wondering what this file coverage section was. It says 0%, and this is where the code owners feature comes in. And I'll mention that in a minute, and we'll jump back into the repo. And so this is where things start fitting in between the synergy between Conformance and code owners. And so you probably saw me just merging straight into main, and you probably understood that that's probably not how most people do modern software development. You probably are going through, you're creating a branch, you're probably getting that branch approved by specific people, and going through that approval process through different environments before it actually hits production. And so this is where you can combine both code owners and Conformance to make sure people are reviewing the right types of code, and then they're also following the right types of code style and code formatting. And so let's open up my Git client again, and let's create a branch. Let's create a very detailed one called code change. Let's publish this. And so if we go back into my repository, you probably have a hierarchy in your organization that maps to who needs to review which types of code, right? Like frequently in an organization, you might have the CTO who oversees the entire code base, but specific teams are responsible for specific parts of the application. And this is where code owners lets you pick, I want the CTO, he is in charge of the entire repository. But as you build out these approvers files, that's where it maps to specific parts of the repo. And so if I go into the web folder here, this is where I have not only I said myself, I am the owner of this package, but you can also say specific files are owned by specific people. So frequently I talk to companies where, especially if they're doing things very specific to PCI or security and compliance, specific files you want to be reviewed by very specific teams. And so for this example, I've also said that this middleware file needs to be reviewed by the InfoSec team. And we also need to make sure that specific rules need to be reviewed by the InfoSec team. And I'll go over that in a minute as well. And so let's jump back to the example where I have to make this code change. And so let's say today, I want to do something where I fetch from middleware. And so if you aren't aware, inside Next.js, we have the concept of middleware, which is where you're running JavaScript functions before you actually go to the CDN level. So this lets you run dynamic compute and lets you redirect or rewrite to specific static versions of the page or run logic before you actually hit the site. And so a lot of times, because this is in the hot path of the site, we recommend that people don't make external network requests, especially because those network requests are hitting probably a regional server somewhere, introducing latency, especially to users far away from that server. So let's go here and let's just, for example's sake, let's say we're fetching to google.com. Let's save this. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to run our conformance check here. As a developer, I get the option of just running my conformance check locally, seeing if anything's wrong. And it looks like I actually did something wrong. Inside here, the local CLI said I decided to fetch from middleware. Let's say I'm a rogue developer, and now I just want to ignore this. I've run the CLI. I'm not even going to put my allow list. I can go in here, let's commit my change. We'll commit it to the branch. And this is where we can show how we can make sure that as developers go in, we can enforce these conformance rules before it goes to production. So if we jump back to Git, what I'll probably be doing is creating a pull request for this specific change. And so if we go into GitHub, the first thing we can do is we can create our pull request. If you aren't familiar with Vercel, it also creates a comment, lets you quickly preview, add feedback to the change. And so let's say I want to take a quick look at it. Looks great to me. The site seems to work. Very happy with it. In here, I actually have a custom GitHub action that's firing. And so this is where it lets me ensure that as I make these changes, let's make sure these conformance checks are actually being checked. And so it's being run. Uh-oh, it seems to have failed. And this is where I can go in here, see that something's failed, and see, here's all the rules that I need to check and before I can actually merge it in. And so if I go into, I think it was in web, here we go. Fetch calls to middleware must be reviewed. And then this is where I'm stopped and I'm told I need to actually, if I were one of these reviewers on this pull request, I would need to enforce that this problem either needs to be fixed or you need to have a very good reason it needs to be allow listed, and then we'll allow list and add that change. And so let's jump back into the conversation here. The second thing you'll notice on this pull request is the Vercel code owner's bot will also create a comment on here saying that InfoSec was now notified because I changed this specific file. So because I changed this file, I now need InfoSec to also approve it before I can make this change, ultimately adding an extra layer of security before things go out to production. And so now I've finally been stopped. InfoSec's called me. They've told me I've done something very, very bad. I've stopped this bug that could have caused me millions of dollars of revenue to my company. And now I'll begrudgingly either fix it or allow list it. Because I'm a good developer, I will actually fix the problem. And let's just remove this fetch. And we'll just throw a console log. That will now resolve that. And then ultimately, now InfoSec can go in here, see that all my rules are passing. And then once all those pass, InfoSec will go in, approve this change, and I can merge this to production and be happy that everything is good to go and perfect. Merge it in. I'll save you the time of running all these checks. Now, finally, I mentioned before, if we go back to the repo here, this file coverage section, it said 0% before. Now that we've actually gone in, made changes to our site, now we can see that there's 100% code coverage across my repo. So just like I mentioned before, I have these approvers files. And so simply because I have the CTO approver across the entire repo, that gives me 100% code coverage. But I not only have this 100% coverage with the CTO, I also have sub coverage on the additional teams where I own both these projects. And then InfoSec also owns the specific files that need to be properly reviewed as well. And so inside Vercel Conformance in the dashboard, you can actually see insights as to, today I've had 100% coverage over one pull request, but if people start changing the approvers files and approvers files start disappearing and bad code starts slipping in, you would also see this dashboard start sliding as well. And so ultimately that is Conformance. That is the tool that helps developers ship faster while also limiting the amount of defects that hit their site. So I'll jump back to the slides quickly. I don't have too many. And then we can jump to Q&A. And so this is where this all fits into the Vercel developer experience platform. And so giving you the tools to develop, preview, and ship. So just like I showed in that example where I decided to ship bad code in my middleware and it got blocked by InfoSec, allows me to ship, and very quickly InfoSec got called. I didn't have to manually add InfoSec. I didn't have to have InfoSec do a very detailed review. It told InfoSec exactly what I did wrong, and it stopped me. Ultimately, it let me take that pull request, make the change, ship it faster, and not have to deal with as much cross-functional feedback as you typically would, right? Stopping like the issues in production, especially as teams are scaling in these large mono repos, shipping faster. It helps put guardrails in place so the code base still stays healthy. And especially that the code ownership piece, like there's other tools in the market similar to like GitHub code owners, but really we saw a gap where it allowed us to create a tool that was much more robust. It allows you to specifically add modifiers to specific parts of the file, really give you a much more detailed way of who owns which code, because a lot of times it's the review process that is the slowest part of getting code to production. Knowing who needs to review it and getting them to approve it, and getting them to approve which part and which parts are the most sensitive. And then ultimately giving you that conformance score in your dashboard of your code health as a whole, and knowing which issues you've decided to allow list and are currently sitting in production and what you need to fix, and giving you the chance to add JIRA issues and slowly burn that list down, right? Giving you this nice dashboard where you can see the score and see the issues slowly slide down over time, right? And a lot of this comes down to the fact that as the creators of the framework, we want to be able to give you the guidance and the tools to be able to succeed. That like the amount of requests we get for people looking for specific Next.js guidance is beyond what we're capable of. And so we want to give you the tools to be able to have these best practices in a CLI, in a tool that you can quickly run yourself without too much effort. And especially as almost every large enterprise that I talk to is trying to scale a monorepo, or they've tried to scale a monorepo and they've turned around because they haven't been able to put these guardrails in place to scale it properly. So we want to be able to give you the tools in your monorepo to scale the site, be able to ship code quickly and not be blocked by people not knowing who owns which code, or how to be able to ship things better. And then ultimately setting you up for better developer experience, better quality at scale, and being able to codify the expertise that we've developed over the years. And so I'll save you the time here, but ultimately we've seen from customers being able to see tangible performance improvements by removing these errors that were in their site, seeing customers save days of CI time by being able to leverage tools like Turbo Repo in their dashboard, like I showed in the example where it was actually caching things where it shouldn't have, where it was almost too fast. And then also giving you that list in the dashboard where you can actually burn down and prioritize which are high impact issues and which are low impact issues. So you can see that these issues I should probably take over and burn down first. And these other issues are lower priority and I should probably take care of them later. Ultimately giving you better insight than other tools on the market where they're much more for broad software development versus giving you the tools for high quality front-end software development. And that's where I'll stop for Q&A.